people upset. Why would I not do that all day long? Why would I not do that? I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's meeting a need. If my brain is bored and all I have to do with minimal effort is look at you and you get upset, why wouldn't I do that? That's not actually the provoking child's issue in many ways. It's everybody else's issue because everybody else is reacting to that child. Does that make sense? I'm not saying if you agree with it, but it's true. It's what's happening in the brain. And then the other place where sibling fights come from is if you have a more strong-willed child, that tends to be in trouble a little bit more, the more impulsive kid who's in trouble. And then that child has a sibling who's the good child, the golden child. Well, now you're going to have resentment because everybody likes my brother more than they like me because you guys don't even like me, right? Some of you have a kid who says that. You guys don't even like me. Why are you always picking on me? And your answer will be, because you're always doing things wrong, right? But that's the Cain and Abel thing that happened. Resentment of one brother kills the other one. So a little bit later we'll go into, well, what do you do about that? But I encourage you to recognize most sibling issues don't really have to do with the siblings. There's something going on inside one of the kids that provokes that, whether it's boredom or I'm resentful and don't feel good about myself, so I'm going to pick on someone else. That's a confidence issue. A confident kid doesn't cheat at games. Some of you have kids and you can't play board games with them because they're going to change the rules of the game, cheat, or quit. Well, we'll say, well, that's poor sportsmanship, which it is, but it's not the issue. If I have confidence, well, I can lose, and I'm okay losing. But if I don't have a lot of confidence, if I lose, that makes me a loser, so I'm going to do anything I can to keep from losing. Does that make sense at all? So I'm learning as I get older to be more precise in how I define things, because if we're just talking about, you're not a good sport, well, I don't know how to fix that. You need to be a better sport. Here's how we usually fix it. Honey, it's really important that you learn to play well with others. And those are those mommy lectures that literally mean nothing to a kid. They're Charlie Brown's teacher. But if I know that you don't feel good about yourself and you're not confident, well, if I build your confidence up, then I won't have to lecture you about those things, if that makes sense. Good, that's a good example with the sibling things. What else? For those just coming in, why did you come out tonight? Anything in particular? I like how this has formed where everybody's like just going back like that. I like it. It's better than being like all spread out. I like people closer, but this is pretty good. I'm happy with this. You're all within my eyesight. What else? Other issues? Do any of you have issues with your pastor at all? Because we can talk about that. Oh, he's here. So, I'm kidding. Okay. Major reactions to what you see are pretty small things. So do me a favor, open up your handout to the second page, and you'll see a chart with 3 columns. And we'll go through that kind of I'll do it in 2 minutes or less, and then we'll come back to it a little. First column, kids who have very busy brains. Any of you have kids that kind of have busy brains. They're always thinking life goes really fast for them. So it feels like life like things aren't in control. And that's why they do want to control everything. They're kind of bossy at times. They cheat at games, all those things. Disorganized, executive function issues in their brains. But one of the things listed on there, I believe, is meltdowns over little things. It is the little things that go wrong that often set them off. And so to a good mom, you're like, well, it's not that big a deal. Doing it, right? Like some of your kids wear the same hoodie sweatshirt like 18 days in a row. And so occasionally you'll take it and try to wash it, and you're like, dude, I'm just trying to wash your sweatshirt. And then they go from like here to here. And then you're like, it's not a big deal. It's okay. It's not okay. They don't do well with little things. It's like transitions, changes in plans are really hard. And oftentimes, if you can get inside the head of the child, it'll help you a lot. Many of these kids visualize things. Like they have a vision of like, this is how I want it to be. And they picture it. And then when it doesn't go precisely how they want it to be, super frustrated. Like working with a family the other day. So they have a kid who likes to build paper airplanes. So he builds one, flies it, and it doesn't work. And so your responsibility, it's okay, that was a good airplane, just build another one. No, it's not. It's stupid airplane. I'm stupid. You're stupid, right? And they just, right? Exact words, right? Like, this is stupid. And you're like, it's not a big, it's just, look, I'll help you. We'll go buy an airplane. Just don't melt down, right? I'll buy you a Cessna. Just don't. So we'll get into that, how to handle that. But part of that is in that first column of little things throw them off. Now, big things going wrong, sometimes that actually stimulates the brain, and that's the second column. Many of your kids don't get enough dopamine or blood flow to the brain. The brain is physiologically understimulated. And so that's why if your child's on medication, it's usually a stimulant medication. It's waking up the brain. So the fidgeting and doodling and tapping pencils and chewing on things, procrastinating. If you wait till the last minute, you get an adrenaline rush, brings blood flow to the brain, and so you concentrate better. It's why your kids argue with you. So arguing is the same thing as a sibling fight. All I have to do is push my parents' buttons, and they get all upset. And now, before long, mom and dad are fighting over how to handle me. And now I don't have to do my chores because now mom and dad are fighting. And all I had to do is roll my eyes at you. And then you lost it because after all I do for you, I can't believe that you would treat me that way. And now they have everybody angry at them. Again, why would I not do that if it was that easy? So the child who pushes buttons, that's not really, it is their issue, but it's also your issue because you keep reacting to them, right? Does that make sense? I know this is what you wanted to hear. Everybody's like, wait, I thought we were going to talk about our kids, and you're saying that we're the issue, pretty much. Right? No, it's not that. It's not your fault. It's just that we have a lot of power over our kids react to us by how we act in the moment. So along in there is they like challenges, they're oppositional, they like to do things the hard way. How many of you have noticed you ask your kids to do something simple, they won't do it. But if you make it a challenge or make it hard, then they'll often do it because they want the brain stimulated. And then the third column is about kids with sensory issues. Do any of you have kids who seek physical pressure a lot? Do you kind of know? They don't have to have a diagnosis. It doesn't matter to me. But you'll see them like, any of you have kids that like confined spaces? Like you'll notice them like hiding under things. Or when they were little, they hid in the cubby in preschool or something. Any of you have those kids at all? Okay, good. I like that too. Feel safe under there. And then you have kids who are always like, they hug really tight. Kids who would love to go out and like shovel mulch and do things like that. There's a sensory need that's very much like your need for food. If you don't feed your child, eventually he's going to act out. And just saying, you need to behave better won't work until you give your child a snack, and that changes his behavior. Same thing with sensory issues, so we'll get to that. So, anything else? Pastor, did you want to say? Yeah, come on up. Just at least welcome people, and it makes it feel more official.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for our live stream. So if there's
Yeah.
anything here tonight that you want to go back over, it'll be on our Facebook page or YouTube channel. My name is Kevin Duker. I'm the Director of Children's Ministries. I don't hold the title of pastor. That would be Pastor Evan in the back, who's actually running the tech. So he's still here. But this is Kirk Martin. We had him in 2019. Love having he and his son Casey. Casey's the one who handed out the notes to you. So I think, are we going to do an intermission at one point?
We will,
Okay. So we'll
probably.
kind of get up. You can stretch your legs, get a drink of water. Restrooms are out this door. The women's restroom is kind of on the back side of the men's restroom. You have to go over to the kids' check-in area. It's somewhat hidden. But if it's okay, I'll go ahead and pray.
Yeah.
And we can just kind of get into it.
Let's do it.
You guys will bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much that we can be here tonight. We know that it's really a challenge to parent at times, to lead these kids and their young minds and their young aspirations. But Lord, it's such important work. And so we want to lean in and we want to learn and do our best. And even
Amen. Thank you. A round of applause, if you don't mind, for the children's director, who I'll consider a pastor, because that's a hard job. Oh, you're the one with sibling issues. Okay, I didn't know that was your wife there. I was a little bit tough with her, so sorry about that. I didn't know you were important. I would have been tougher on you. Anyway, so anything else before I kind of get into anything else in particular reasons you came out tonight? Anxiety. We'll definitely do some things on anxiety. We're going to cover parental anxiety, and we'll cover like our kids' anxiety. So let me know if you don't mind ages. How many of you have toddler age kids? Like really little ones. Okay, really quickly, a few things for toddlers. Realize that toddlers are not supposed to be productive or efficient, right? They're not. Their job is to basically ruin your day and your agenda, because you have all these things you want to get done, and a toddler's job is to explore and to get into things, and that's the time of life they're supposed to do that. They have the rest of their lives to be miserable like the rest of us, being all responsible and checking off boxes and being unhappy. So while they're little, encourage them to explore a little bit. I would encourage you with this, instead of always saying no, give them things they can do. Because otherwise their entire childhood as toddlers is, no, stop, take that out of your mouth, don't do that. And it becomes no. So I want to give them things that are appropriate. So big principle is, whenever you say no to something inappropriate, we say yes to something appropriate. Otherwise, it just becomes miserable. Getting little kids moving, and this isn't just toddlers. Music. Remember to use music. Music in the morning when you wake your kids up. Sometimes the music gets them going. Homework time, by the way. Music can be extremely effective while kids are doing homework. Older kids often need to listen to music, even intense music, probably music you're not going to like, while they're writing and doing writing assignments. Experiment with it. Little kids make things a challenge if you want them to do things. We'll get to a lot more things. How many of you have elementary age kids? Okay, good. We will do a lot in that area because that's usually who the main group of people are. Any middle school age? Oh, good. Okay, good luck. Middle school is a hard age. For me, it is a hibernation time. It is not, if you have anybody have a middle school age boy in particular? Okay, so if he's home right now, here's what he's doing. Nothing. He's not doing his homework and he's not doing chores. He's probably sitting in that 15-day-old hoodie sweatshirt that he's been wearing for 2 weeks straight, probably playing video games. And you're going to look at that child and think, who is going to marry this child? Who would possibly hire this child? If they would just do more, they're not living up to their potential. And once we see that, in middle school especially, very few middle school age kids are like, Mom, Dad, I'm really motivated. Could you give me some extra schoolwork, some extra chores? I want to show you how responsible I can be. I know we would like to hear that, but that's abnormal. Your child would be weird if they did that. So I want you to relax with the middle school age kids, not let them do whatever they want, but don't project into the future. Because if you think that 14-year-old kid is going to be the same at 22 or 24, you're wrong. That's your own anxiety. And watch what happens even with younger kids. We start to just notice everything that they do wrong. And we pick it out. You could do that better. And it starts to cause them to shut down because all we ever notice is what they do wrong. If you want, maybe I'll probably give you like 40 things tonight, 10 of them. But one of the main things I would encourage you to try for next week for all kids, especially strong-willed kids, notice and affirm what they're already doing well. Just notice it. Without saying, but, and picking out all the things they aren't doing well. Look, many of us have been picking out the negative things for years, and if that had worked, you wouldn't be here. They are motivated more by when you just notice simple things that they're already doing well. I can tell you from working with a lot of families and a lot of older kids, what they will tell you at age 17 is, Mom, Dad, how come you never noticed all the things that I did do well? You were too busy just pointing out all the things I didn't. And that will cause them to shut down, and it will also cause a fair amount of defiance. So it doesn't mean we don't address. We are going to address the motivation, the internal motivation and discipline issues. But for the next week, focus, just try it. Just focus on what they're doing well. It's interesting. Just observe and see what happens. High school age kids, anybody? Okay, that's good. Usually by high school, people give up and don't come out anymore. So we'll go through some, I'll go through some examples for communicating with teenagers. And then also the internal motivation piece is the most important, and that will come a little bit later on. So how many of you have at least one child that you term a little bit more strong-willed? Okay, good. Why else would you come to a parenting workshop? So, because if you have the easy kids, they're just easy. They don't even need parents. They're just going to grow up and do what everybody says, and if they're a girl, they'll be a people pleaser, and they'll marry a controlling man. How many of you did that? So, don't raise your hands if you're with your spouse. And that's the pattern, right? And all of this is, as Pastor alluded to, a lot of this is breaking generational patterns in us. So, strong-willed kids, in general, this is how we describe them. They tend to be very bright kids. They're smart. They're not always academically motivated, but they're bright. They just tend to use their intelligence to argue with you because they're little cops, judges, and attorneys all rolled into one. And they can pick out all of your inconsistencies. They won't remember anything you ask them to do, but they will remember anything they can use against you. They often don't sleep very well, so we'll do some sleep things. When they wake up in the morning, these are the kind of kids who have an agenda. They know what they like, and they know what they don't like. And what they don't like is anything that you want them to do. So there are going to be power struggles over everything, because you will spend their childhood saying this: if you would just do what I asked you to do, you would be done in 7 minutes. But you'd rather argue with me for 7 days or weeks or years and lose everything you own. Anybody have those kids? Okay. I have no idea how to help them, so you came to the wrong place. So now we're gonna get into this. Look, tonight is going to challenge you. I am going to challenge you, and I ask you for permission to be blunt and just share my experience and what I've observed and worked with, and then you wrestle with it. But I'd rather just be blunt and not try to give caveats and tell you what I really think. And then I like you challenge me on things. Challenge yourself, because I want us to grow and I want us to enjoy these kids. But it is difficult to do because they are tough to raise. They're very tough to raise. Partly because they're given to you to cause you to grow up. Because if you have easy kids, they don't challenge you. They just do what you say. The strong-willed kids, you're going to fight as couples all the time over the strong-willed child. You know what? You're too soft. You just let them get away with things. And then she's going to be like, yeah, you're too hard, and you're too tough, and you're inflexible and rigid. And that's going to help your marriage a lot. So it's going to cause stress, which causes you either in your marriage to grow up or to grow apart, because that's what ends up happening. And I want us to grow up into this. So, the strong-willed kids, they don't respond to consequences. How many of you have found that out? Because that's what everybody says. You just need to be firm with that child, give them the consequence, and follow through. Firm, consistent. Right? How many of you have been judged by other people? Like, you know what, you just need to discipline that child. Really? We never thought about that. But you did all those things. And they literally don't care. You know what? Keep it up. I'll take away your video games for 1 week. You already lost for 1 week. You want to make it 2? Strong-will's going to let's make it a month. And now you're like, no, because we don't know what to do with you if you're not playing your video games all the time. I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap. Could we use Irish Spring? They'll call your bluff on it. We'll get to consequences later. This is a very important, I believe it's a truth. Consequences are important. Consequences set boundaries so they know what is right, what is wrong, what are your boundaries. But here's the big thing that we miss. Consequences don't change behavior. Consequences do not change human behavior. Relationships change behavior. Giving kids tools changes their behavior. But consequences are basically, you messed up and did something wrong, so I'm going to punish you for failing. And we have this thing in our head of like, well, next time he just won't do it. Your kids don't care. How many of your kids, when you tell them something, they calculate? Yeah, I think it's worth it. right? Or they'll do this. You better not put your foot on that chair. And they will just like tap it with their heel. And be like, you touched it. Not my foot, it was my heel. For an hour and a half, they'll argue with that, right? And so instead of fighting with them all the time, I want to show you how to enjoy these kids, get them to do things. So here's one of the hard ones that you're not going to like. The strong-willed child is probably never going to do things the way that you want them done. They're not going to do it your way. And you're going to struggle because you're like, I'm the authority figure in the home. You're going to do what I told you to do. And I don't care if you're 6'4", 250 pounds, big, huge guy, ripped. I'll bet $1,000 that your 7-year-old son owns you. We've worked with almost 1 million families. We had 1,500 of these kids in our home. The big tall kid out there that you met coming in was our strong-willed son. Came out of the womb with boxing gloves on, virtually useless as a child, but awesome as a young man. How many of you have said that before? If we can just get this kid to adulthood, he's going to be great. And we can learn something from that. So here's what I want to do. I want to start with us. I'm going to do an abbreviated version versus what I did last time. And then we'll talk about your kids, getting them to do things and listen. First part of this is about us. Quickly, two truths or two principles. The only person in life that you can control is whom? Ourselves. How many of us struggle with that? Right? How many of us tell our kids, you need to calm down and get control of yourself? Right? Your kids are like, you don't even know how to do that, and you're 40. Right? You're screaming at me to calm down. The quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. We trigger our kids all the time. Look, it's human nature. If I come up to you like this, what are we going to have? It's a confrontation, just by my body posture. But if I were to sit down, now we're going to have a conversation, right? If you look and see a mom and a teenage daughter standing like that, you know she's not saying, honey, I'm really proud of you, right? You know there's something going on. So I'm not going to do the long version, but I'll just keep it at this. Body posture and tone of voice. Body posture. I would encourage you, sometime this week, when your kids are squabbling with you, when they're squabbling with each other, walk into the living room and just sit or lie down in the middle of the floor. Try it sometime. Two siblings are fighting, and what happens? I come in. You know what? I buy guys all these video games, all these toys. You can't even play well together for 20 minutes. You go to your room. You go to your room. And we think we just disciplined, and we didn't, because discipline means to teach. All I did is separate two irritating kids. Why? Because I just want them to shut up. And we already learned there's usually a provoking child and the reacting child. And now, inadvertently, by yelling at them, I just gave the provoking child what he really wanted in his brain, which is brain stimulation. But if I walked in the room while they're arguing and I sat down or laid down in the middle of the floor, I guarantee they're going to stop, because they're going to look at you like, what are you doing? It's weird. Look, I've seen this scene unfold in our home like 43 times this month. I know what's going on. Son, you've got this awesome brain. It's very busy. Always got these ideas going through your head. That's why you blurt out in class, because you got these ideas, but you're afraid you're going to forget them. And you hate boredom. You hate boredom. So when you get bored, you irritate your sister. But the only thing that happens is you get in trouble for that. So I've got another idea for you, because here's what else I know about you. You love money. How many of you have kids who love money? And I don't mean in a bad way. They're born entrepreneurs. Use that to your advantage. Look, you know they're not going to grow up and work a regular job because they don't like authority figures. So it's not like they're going to be able to keep a job long. I'm kind of kidding, but you know that's true. How many of you know that's true? Raise the child you've been given, not the child that you wanted, and not the child that you're comfortable with. So look, you love money, and you've got a really big heart toward other people, not me. How many of you have kids who are amazing for other people and horrible at home? It's the way they are. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So I've got an idea. I've got to go get started on dinner. If you want to come in and help me fix dinner, by the way, how many of you have kids that like to cook? A lot of the kids we work with love to cook. But here's two things they're going to have. They're not going to follow a recipe, and they're not going to clean up. They're not going to clean up ever. You're like, well, if you're not going to clean up, you're not going to cook. Then they won't cook. There are gray areas here. You're like, but if they don't learn how to cook, clean up, how are they going to be responsible in life? My son had a horrible bedroom when he was a kid. That's why we had a door on his bedroom. His bathroom was borderline disgusting. He now owns his own home. We visited 2 weeks ago. You know what it looks like? Spotless. I walk in, you know what he said? Dad, you got to take your shoes off in my house. Seriously? Then I'm at least going to throw my towel on the floor. Have toothpaste all over, not pick it up. It doesn't work to project out. I want you to teach your kids and model these things, but don't freak out thinking, well, if that 5-year-old doesn't pick up all of his Legos by himself, which he's not going to do, you're going to be on the floor on your hands and knees doing it, swearing underneath your breath. I see you doubt that. Yeah, that's what you did, didn't you? Not you, I was pointing at them, but you do it too. And you do it. And inside, I know what you're thinking, but he's got to learn to be responsible for his behavior. If you dump your Legos, you've got to pick them up. And that's a perfectly normal, especially guy thing to think of, like how you're going to be successful. And I'm saying you're going to have to grade on a curve with these kids. A mom the other night asked a good question. So does that mean we ask less of them? No, not less. You're going to have to parent them differently because you can stand over them their entire childhood, pick that up. They're not going to clean up after they cook. They're just not. So, son, I'm going to go and I've got to get started on dinner. If you want to come in and help me, I bet we could brainstorm 3 different ways for you to earn some money in the neighborhood. And with that money, you could buy your own screens and you give money to charity. And I'll even match what you give to charity. So now I've just taught him, instead of sending him to his room because he was fighting with his sister, I know why you're fighting with your sister, because you got bored. So if you keep irritating her, your entire childhood, you'll just lose all your stuff. But I can show you a better way to use your brain to get something out of it that you want, which is you really like money. Does that make sense? So body posture, work on it. The truth is, when I'm walking around like this, I feel like yelling at someone. But if you were to sit down, look, it's virtually impossible to yell at someone when you're sitting down. It feels stupid. You better it doesn't feel right. Now this I want to yell at someone right now. But when I sit down, it changes something. Look, I like simple stuff. I don't want to give you here's the 10-step calming process when you get upset. You can't think of that in a moment, but at any time when I sit down, it changes the dynamic. Tone of voice. So here's what we usually start with. Sweetie, baby, mommy needs your help. I would not ever use that tone with a strong-willed child. It sounds weak and condescending to them. I would not refer to myself as mommy or daddy. Mommy needs some help. You know what they hear? Weakness. They hear pleading in that, because here's what it really sounds like to them. Sweetie, baby, you scare the crap out of us. Because every time we ask you to do something, you have a big meltdown. So we think if we talk to you in this really sweet tone, they don't respect it. I also don't like the pleading tone. Guys, all I'm asking for is a little bit of help around here. Because as soon as they hear that, they know, Mom, you're exhausted. I'm going to push your buttons and own you in 7 seconds. Just give me what I want right now, and I will leave you alone. Moms, look, I'm going to hit some things very quickly. Moms usually do way too much for their kids, and then they end up feeling resentful. After all I do for you, and you know what that is? It is pure manipulation. Because I've done so much for you, you owe me. See how that works? Your kids are never going to wake up and say, Mom, listen, how to talk with my brother. We've determined you do way too much around here. No, they're going to take advantage of you. But you're allowing that to happen also. And I want you to have some proper boundaries. I'll do some stuff on that a little bit later. So that doesn't work. Usually when the sweet tone doesn't work, we come over and that's when we do, you know what, you better get your little butt up. And that was what I was raised with. My dad was career military. So my dad's 4 sons, we all grew up, got married, and have kids. Guess what we did? Fear and intimidation, yelling and screaming. And here's why it won't work with a strong-willed child. One, they are fight or flight kids. Many of your kids are up for the fight. You know, bring it, Dad, bring it. If you go to spank them, they'll pull their own pants down. Right in the middle, they'll be like, Dad, I can't even feel it when you do it. You might want to have Mom do it. They will taunt you. How many of you have found that to be true? Also, watch this. As soon as I start to get visibly irritated, what does the child know? If I just push my dad's buttons a little bit, he's going to lose it. As soon as I'm out of control, child's in complete control. So watch, right between sweetie baby and screaming and yelling is this. It's me in control of myself. That's why I like to sit when I discipline kids, because what I'm communicating is I'm in complete control of myself. My yes is my yes, my no is my no. Even matter-of-fact tone, whenever you talk to a strong-willed child, whenever you give instructions, take the emotion out of it. I'll use a quick analogy. Men in every sphere of life respect other men who stay cool and calm under pressure. In the middle of a war, we don't want our platoon captain saying, oh my gosh, they're shooting at us. Nobody's following that guy. We don't want our quarterback in the fourth quarter coming in saying, you know what, we're down by 2 touchdowns. You don't know what route to run. You keep fumbling. Let's go score. Nobody's following that guy. The reason Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowls, even if he cheated for 4 of them, he still has 3 legit ones, which is more than the Colts or the Bears have lately. I don't know who you're fans of. Are we Colts fans up here? Okay, you stole my team. I'm from Baltimore, so thank you. But I do like the Colts. Anyway, Carson Wentz, not bad this year. Pretty good, until he gets injured next week. But, kidding. But when Tom Brady comes into the huddle and says, guys, we're down by 2 touchdowns. We're going to march down the field, score, get the ball back, score again. His team follows him because he's confident. Does that make sense? For those of you with younger kids, sometimes at the end of the day when you come home from work, take a knee in the middle of your living room. You will draw toddlers to you by doing that. Rather than coming in, there's Legos all over the floor, nobody listens around here. I used to come in and bring chaos into my home. And then I started learning. I come in and kneel. Now, if you have teenagers, they're going to be like, what are you doing? And then they'll leave you, and that's kind of what you want. I'm kidding. If you ever want to get rid of your kids, do this. Start making out with your spouse. It'll gross them out, and then they're going to be like, we're out of here. And then you can threaten them. If you guys are not good, you're going to have another sibling 9 months from now. So I'm kidding. Don't tell them that. But it is kind of fun to do. You can actually do the making out thing. Just don't do that other threat. So I encourage you this week, practice the even matter-of-fact tone, and I will model it for the rest of the night. So let's get into, I'll say one more thing, and you'll kind of see it throughout the evening. I believe with 100% certainty that the quickest way to get changes in your kids this week is not to try to fix them, but to work on yourself. There's no blame, there's no guilt in there. It's a simple fact that the only thing I have control over in my entire life is how I respond to different situations. I can lead it. Look, if I do this with a child, I'm just going to escalate. But if I change my response with that child in that moment, I can help him de-escalate. He's feeding off of me. So we have a lot of power as parents. We'll get into that in just a minute. Let me do this. Let's hit that one. I may have done this story last time. I'm not sure, but I've added some good things, and it'll relate to the really volatile kids. So one of the biggest triggers in here, I know for men and for all of us is, but especially for men, is when I used to hear my son yelling at my wife. So my son would yell at my wife. What's your name, if you don't mind? Troy. So Troy, you're going to be my stand-in for my terrible son. So I would come in a room, Troy, how many times have I told you, you don't yell at your mother? You keep that up, you're going to lose everything you own. I don't know why you can't listen. And once I got upset at my son, I would just unload all the things I was mad about. You never clean your room. You can't follow directions. We get calls from school. You know what? Go to your room. And then he would go to his room and slam the door. Why? Because that's a trigger, right? You don't have to respect me, but you're going to respect my furniture and my door. Right? Anybody do those lectures? I knew you did. Good dad. I like that. Oh, this is the problem with bringing your child. This first part, they're going to be like, do your parents do that? And be like, yeah, Dad does that one, Mom does that one. Yeah, look, he's all full of himself. Later, I'm going to really hammer on you, though, so don't get too cocky, my friend. I'm kidding. You're a good guy. I like it. Did you guys go to Gatlinburg? Cool. That's where Casey learned how to ice skate, of all places. First time he skated when he was like 6. Did you see any bears while you were there? You did? Like black bear, grizzly bear? Yeah, those things are pretty scary. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I would escalate things because I would come and say, you know, how many times have I told you not to do that? And we'd start to escalate things. And what I realized, I would go to things like, you know, one more word, young man, which when Casey was young, one time, you know what he said to me? Word. That's how difficult he was. And then we say things, you know, keep it up. You've already lost it for 1 week, and we go there. What I realized later, a few years later, that I didn't notice in the moment was I was purposefully escalating things with my son because I wanted him to act out worse than I was acting out. So I felt justified because I go downstairs and tell my wife, did you hear how your son talks to me? And she'd be like, where do you think he learned it, right? And this will sting a little bit. Remember, I don't do guilt or blame. I want us to own these things. I purposefully escalated things with my son, and here's what I was really saying to him. I need you to behave because if you don't behave and do exactly what I tell you to do, I'm not sure I can behave, and you do not want to see me angry. Does that make sense? I was dependent on him. That was my form of manipulation. You better behave or I'm going to get really angry. And that's how my dad taught me. I didn't respect my dad. I feared my dad. And that's two different things. And I want your kids to respect you. So let's rewind this and do it a different, here's the end of it. So I would come downstairs and I would think, I just stood up for my wife. And you know what my wife was thinking? No, you didn't. You just ruined the whole evening. Because now I have to spend 3 hours in the bedroom calming our son down, explaining your father doesn't hate you. He just has some unresolved issues from childhood, right? And I would come downstairs and I would be a little resentful of like, you know what? I wouldn't have to yell at him if you weren't so soft and let him get away with things. Because that's what we do to each other. Look, you two as a couple, I'm not picking on you, it's all of us in here. You don't have to parent the exact same way. One of you is going to be more firm and more tough, and we need that. And one of you is going to be a little bit softer with a little bit more mercy. We need both of those, and you need to work together on that. I don't want you both to be all soft because then your child's going to run all over you. But I don't want you both walking in like this because then you're not going to have a relationship with that child, right? And as I go through this, I'll try to do examples. You can discipline your son and be really tough with these kids. You just got to keep it even and matter of fact and not get personal with them. See, that's what we start to get is personal. Those phrases, how many times do I have to tell you? You know what that literally means? You're an idiot. True? How many wives would allow your husband to get away with this? Honey, what were you thinking? You'd be like, I was rethinking my marriage choice. That's what I was thinking. Right? We don't think about it, but that's so let's rewind this. De-escalating situations. So before we discipline, we have to calm the situation down. Otherwise, it escalates. Everybody's irrational. I'm mad, you're mad, and nothing works. So I've added something since the last time we were here related to that intensity. So to de-escalate, here's the phrase that we use. Motion changes emotion. Movement is a tool that helps a kid calm down. Talking doesn't work. Talking too much when your kids are upset makes them more angry. How many of you have noticed that? It's provoking your child to anger. Here are a couple other little ones things we do now because we're so into therapy, and my wife is a therapist, so we're fine with therapy. But asking that thing of like, honey, do you want to identify your emotions? That is infuriating. If you have a bad day and your spouse comes home and they're like, honey, do you want to identify your emotions? You'd be like, yeah, anger and resentment toward you. Right? They don't need to because they're often like, I don't know. What our kids really need, they don't need to talk about their emotions all day long. What they need is an adult who can tell them what to do with their emotions, right? Normalize it. Of course you're frustrated. Here's the other thing we do. Sometimes people think calm is talking like this all the time. That voice is infuriating. When a kid's really upset, oh, honey, it's okay. I'm being calm now. And they're like, "Urgh." Imagine if you're a mom and one of your friends does something hurtful to you, and then you go and talk to another friend, you're like, hey, she did something really hurtful, and what if that friend was like, oh, it's not a big deal? You'd be like, oh, you're not my friend either. What you want to hear is, that would hurt really badly. If I were you, I'd be frustrated. So, intensity. If you're taking notes, I'd write down the word intensity. And I want you to try this with your little guy that gets really intense. Let's give some intensity in the moment. So that kid that was making the paper airplanes and throwing they weren't working, instead of being like, oh, it's okay, we'll build another one. Something like this. Oh, man, if I were you, I'd be really frustrated too. See, that's acknowledging. You're not, watch what I didn't say. If I were you, I'd punch a hole in the wall. If I were you, I'd hit your side. I didn't say that. I just said if I were you, I'd be really frustrated too. It depends how you play with these things and experiment with them. You know what? You put all that time into it and you put a lot of effort into it and it didn't turn out the way you want it. That's frustrating. See, that feels good when you're frustrated rather than just dismissing it. And then, now here's the movement part. You know what I need some help with? I would have, for those of you that have the more volatile kids, have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 go-to things that they can do when they get upset. See, when you're upset, everything's out of my control. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. You tell me to calm down. I don't know how to calm down. I need something to do. For those of you with kids with sensory issues, giving them something physical to do, going out through that obstacle course that they have. If you've got 3 or 4 kids, you can't just go outside and play catch with them. But you say, oh, honey, you know, if I were you, I'd be frustrated too. Could you do me a favor? Go in the pantry. Could you get me a jar of spaghetti sauce and get that off because you're really strong? The act of going and getting the spaghetti sauce, I'm now doing something and I'm twisting it off. See, where we get in trouble is my whole focus becomes, I want you to calm down. And they know it. And everything you try is manipulative. And because our whole goal is, I just want you to calm down. Please just calm down. Look, here's cash. Here's my debit card. Instead, let's give them tools and give them a specific job to do. In this situation where you're yelling at my wife, I may come in the room and say, oh man, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to take the football outside. When you're ready, if you want to come outside and play catch, love to play catch. Hey, man, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to dump your Legos out in the living room. When you're ready, if you want to come in and build a spaceship with me, man, I could really help. Why did you just, nod on that one? Do you have a little Lego guy? Okay, so he's obsessed. So maybe we don't feed that. But that would be, I'd rather have him be obsessed with that than other things, right? He's a little builder. But here, watch the beauty of this. So how old is he? Okay, so 4. So he doesn't know a whole lot. He just knows when things don't go well, I get really upset and I start lashing out. And so instead of coming in, looking down at this kid, you better calm down now. And so it's like, man, I can tell you're frustrated. I'm going to go build with Legos. Not a lot of words. Then you go and sit on the floor and just start building. You're not looking at him. You're just building. He's in there still fuming for a little bit, right? And now he's making a decision of I'm angry, but Dad's building with Legos. And you're leading him. You're drawing him, and there's no, you're not saying, come on, buddy, build with Legos. Come on, don't yell at Mom. See, if you try to fix him, he'll resist. But if you lead, and you're just there building with the Legos, which hopefully you enjoy as well, right? Now you guys, and who cares if you miss dinner? Right? I'd rather calm him down. All you have to do is throw some mac and cheese in the backyard, and he'll go on all 4s anyway and eat it. So how many of you know that's true? Many of your kids would love that. So why not do it? Especially after it snows. Now they got to forage for it and dig through it. No, it's a great idea, Mom. whatever, lady. So anyway, it would work. I do stuff that works. Seriously. If it's an infant, no, we don't want them dying. But an 8-year-old, I'll throw stuff out on the ground all day long. They'll get down on all fours and eat it like a dog and love it. And it'll be good for them too. All that nutrition from the grass outside, you want them eating grass-fed stuff. Now they have grass-fed mac and cheese. Anyway, so while you're on the ground, now here's what's important is you're just building. Hey, let's build, what color do you want to build this spaceship? How big do you want to make it? So you're not talking to him yet about yelling at his mother. You're calming him down, and you're calming down, but you're together now rather than you go sit in time out until you can learn to control yourself. And then he'd say, well, why don't you sit in time out till you learn to control yourself because it's been 35 years and you haven't figured it out. So I like leading them to do something with their hands. See, that's calming to him, and he gets his brain on that. The phrase that I like in there is when you're ready. See if this makes sense. Never use it this way. Hey, son, when you're ready, go to your room and get your shoes and then come downstairs. He's never going to go to his room and get it ready. But in an emotional power struggle, in that moment when kids are really upset, when you're ready gives them a sense of ownership. Because if you tell a strong-willed child, stop it right now, guarantee you always, no. How many of you have learned that? If you tell them right now, you're going to apologize to your sister right now. No. If you don't apologize right now, I'm going to take away everything you own. Fine. Sorry, stupid sister. How many of you get that one? And you're like, pretty close to an apology. I think we'll take it. So when I've come outside, when I say when you're ready and he comes outside, we can play catch. We're building with Legos. He's screwing the top off the thing, whatever it is. I like it because now we're together instead of separated. And I want you with your kids because here's the cool thing you're communicating. When your world is out of control, mine's not. I can handle you at 4. When you're 7, I can handle it. When you're 14 and there's worse social media or whatever, if you break up with your first girlfriend, boyfriend at 16, I'm the one you can come to because I'm not going to freak out. That's what I want for you guys. That's you guys are a beautiful couple in that respect of like, how cool will this be if you start doing this stuff? And I would see it as an opportunity. Like, I hope your 4-year-old tomorrow just freaks out in some big way. I really hope that. You're welcome. Because, no, in a serious sense, because one, it'll be fresh. And when you see how that works, it's like we turned a nasty situation into a bonding opportunity. And that'll pay dividends when they're 14. Now, he's not going to he may build with Legos. That may be your thing that he does. Older kids, I can put them in the car of like, hey, I'm going to Taco Bell. Do you guys have a Taco Bell here? Okay, perfect. Now made with grass-fed beef. And it's like it's not. But it's a buck-a-taco. It's cheap. So it's a good riding in the car. Here's the other thing in that scenario. No eye contact. 2 things for the men in here. You won't like me for this, but I think it's true. When you become a dad and you get the dad handbook, it says this. Take everything personally and misinterpret everything your child does as an act of disrespect. Is that not true? Own up to it, men. We think everything is disrespect. They're kids. Is it disrespectful sometimes? Yes, but not everything. Look, you were a dopey kid once too. Were you not? We're always like, oh, when I was a kid. No, you weren't. We were dopes. We were worse. We got away with way more than our kids did. You know why, dude? You know why? Because our parents weren't watching. Is that not true? Look, we were gone for literally 10, 12 hours a day in the summer. When we came home, our parents never said, what did you guys do today? Did you have fun? They didn't ask us, did they? You know why? Because they respected us enough to know that we would have fun. And if we didn't have fun, that was our own fault for being bored. True? But they didn't ask what we did. We were doing all kinds of stuff. We were way more mischievous. We played ding-dong ditch. You can't play ding-dong ditch because everybody has those Ring doorbells with a camera on it. It's ruined all childhood for everyone. So, I'm just saying for men, relax with that stuff. You're the man. It's a kid. You were a kid once. I can be tough with kids, and we'll do that after the break. But relax. The other thing is eye contact. Every man thinks if the child's not looking him in the eyes, that's disrespect. Sometimes it's a sensory thing. Many of your kids, they think best when they're not looking. I will often, when I'm recalling a story, look down, look up, close my eyes. Don't freak out about that. The other reason is this. Typically, when do we look our kids in the eyes? When they're in trouble, right? Look at me when I'm talking to you. Many of your kids have a very deep shame impulse. They've been in trouble since the day they were born. They're impulsive. They're in trouble all the time. That's why they lie, by the way. Most of your kids, it's not an integrity issue. They're just always in trouble, and so they don't want the consequence, so they lie. It's one of the very first things a human being did on earth. Adam, who ate from the tree? She made me do it. He lied. Why? Because he was ashamed. And that's why we're going to rebuild them from the inside out. But I don't give eye contact to kids when I'm upset. I give eye contact. I'd rather come home and say, you know what? Really good choice you made. Well done, son. See, that reinforces that. And do that. You guys are going to have, it's going to be awesome. So let's transition to this. Let's talk about this idea of ownership. I just alluded to it. When you and I were kids, we had ownership of our lives. We were gone 10, 12 hours a day, 3 hours after school, we just went out and played, and then we came in. We made dozens of decisions a day with no adults around. Your kids growing up today, everybody's on them all the time. Tell them what to do, how to do it. We know everything that they do, and they feel trapped. So here's conceptually how I want to look at this. So I create a big box for kids to live in. Because if you have a strong-willed child, everybody's going to judge you and say, you need to clamp down on that child. And that will create so much defiance. I create a big box. Now, I've got very clear rules, very clear boundaries, very clear expectations. This is not permissive parenting. I'm very clear about what I expect, but here's the difference. But son, within this big box, I will give you some space. Space is really important for the strong-willed child. If you stand over them, they will resist you. How many of you have found that? If you just stand over them. Think about this. Tell your child to do something, and then you're standing there. They won't do it, and here's why. They're stove touchers. They like the ownership. They want to figure it out themselves. So when you turn around, now I feel safe to start to do this, but I'm not going to do it the way you want me to do it because I want to figure out my own way. That's a really healthy and good thing for kids to do. You have to really think about this. Why did you have kids? See, we have kids like, oh, we're going to love our kids, and then we get in this ultra-responsible, I got to raise them to be responsible citizens. And we stop enjoying them, and then we just want them to be little robots and do exactly what I said, how I said it. Your strong-willed child is not that child, and if you're intent on doing that way, you are going to ruin your relationship with that child, and it will be awful in the teenage years. So watch, see if this makes sense conceptually. When you turn around and you step back and give me some space, I'll start doing some things. But I'm going to do them a different way. And when I mess up, which I will, see if you're standing and watching, oh, honey, don't do it that way. Look, if you just did it my way, it would be so much quicker, so much easier. They don't want to do it the easier, quick way. They don't. They want to figure it out themselves. And that's a good thing. Right? You don't want to go off to college with your child. Honey, I'm going to go to class with you. I want to make sure that that's basically what we're doing now. We're on them all the time. So if you don't want to go to college and live in the dorm room with them, we've got to give them some space. Because when I mess up, you know what else we do? You know what? I told you, if you would have just done it my way, you wouldn't have gotten messed up. And they're like, I'm out. If you're on them. So I give them some ownership. In that sibling thing where you said something mean to your sister and I want an apology right now. And then you're just like, sorry. If I were to come up and say, hey son, I know that when you're ready, you know the right thing to do, and I walk away and drink, I'm kidding. I don't want you to drink. But you're going to feel like it at times. You are, because they're difficult. I just gave them some space to apologize. But if I stand, I'm just going to stand here until I get an apology. You're going to stand there for days. Because what are you going to do to them? I'm going to take away everything you own. You did that 3 years ago. There's nothing left. When I give them some space, now the hard part, he's not going to apologize tonight. So you're going to be laying in bed thinking, are we raising a sociopath because he hasn't apologized yet? Tomorrow morning, he will get up and do something thoughtful for his sister as an act of contrition. And your appropriate response is, nice job, my friend. Fist bump. Shows me you're growing up. Now, do I like the way he apologizes? No, because he's never going to use the words, I'm sorry. But you have to use the words, I'm sorry. They won't do it because you want them to do it like that too much. We have control issues. How many of you have control issues? Thank you for your honesty. Everybody else in here is lying. We all have control issues. And you're going to come face to face with how many control issues you have. I know, but I'm the adult. I'm the authority figure. I know that. I'm not asking you to let them get away with things. I'm asking you to give them some space to do it differently than you would do it, but still getting to the same objective. Because otherwise, it's just going to fight. And then anxiety. We all have anxiety because we see our kids not living up to their potential. How many of you have the older kids who will do the bare minimum just to get by in school? That's awesome. Do you know how, you won't like this, but you know how brilliant that is? That is high-level thinking. I don't care about this grade. I'm in middle school and I figured out grades don't even count until I get to high school. So I don't really care about it. Why would I do extra work to do something that I don't even value? The truth is, every single person in here makes the same calculation literally every day. Nobody in here does your best. We tell our kids, do your best at everything. You don't do your best at everything. Neither do I. I'm looking at some of you. I can tell you're not doing your best. You could work out harder. You could eat better. You could work hard. You could. True? But you don't value it because you have other priorities. So we put all these things on our kids that we don't put even on ourselves, and then we wonder why they kind of shut down. So I dare you with a middle school child to go tell him, say, it's actually really good thinking. Shows me you're a strategic thinker and that you put effort into the things that you value. Because the things that you value are your friendships, social skills, being connected, and getting to the next level in your video game. Because when you play your screens, you are goal-oriented, you are driven, and you are persistent. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't pee, you don't do your work. Is that not true? Is that not true? When they care about something, they have all those qualities that you want them to exhibit. Goal-oriented, driven, persistent. It's there. They just don't do it at anything you want them to do. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes that's because we're just on them so much and they're like, can't ever please you. I'm not even going to try that. You know what? You know that grade that you brought up from a C+ to a B? Good job. But if you would just try a little harder, because some of you are like that. You're like, but why would you not do your best and get all A's? Don't you want check marks for everything? So you've got to evaluate that. Some of you are like, but I love the check marks from my teacher. And some of you have kids who are like, I don't care about a check mark from my teacher. So why would I do that? And that's going to mess with your brain. But you have to wrestle with those things and think, maybe that's my thing. I'm not talking about letting your kids drop out of school. So ownership. Let me do a couple. Before I do this, does anybody struggle with morning routine? Okay. So I'm going to throw out some ideas, some tough ones, some soft ones. Connection breeds compliance. Sometimes in the morning, I walk in, sit on the side of my son's bed, and give him a compliment to wake him up. Many of your kids, here's what morning is like for them. Hey, come on, get up really early. You didn't sleep well. I want you to do the 5 things you least want to do early in the morning. You got to get up, get dressed, eat, brush your teeth, brush your hair, and go to that place where you're on red on the behavior chart and don't have any friends. Ready? Right? And so what if I walked in and complimented them? I used to walk in occasionally and say, Casey, because my son was into blues music from an early age. They're often old souls. They're not really good as kids, but they're really good as adults. There he is, right on cue. Hey, Casey. This is our last night of a 2-week trip. We've been in cars and the hotels together for 2 straight weeks. And the fact that we almost still like each other is a really beautiful thing. So, I love my son. He is a very strong-willed, difficult kid, especially when he gets hungry. So, anyway, do you have anything you want to add to this or no? Okay, good. Okay. That was so insincere. You're doing a great job, Dad. Whatever. So, okay. Stop. Just leave. So, he is an awesome kid, awesome young man, but he was not a great kid. He was just like your kids. They turn out great. Short stint in jail, awesome after that. I'm kidding. Let's keep him thinking that. If Casey went to jail, I would have zero worries because he would run the place, right? He would never do drugs. He would be the dealer. So he's not stupid. He likes money. You know I'm kidding. Anyway, he's got to deal with it. It's been 2 straight weeks. So I have no idea where I was. Morning routine. So sometimes I'd say, Casey, I downloaded some really cool John Lee Hooker stuff. You get up and get dressed the next 12 minutes, come downstairs, we will blast that. Draw them to you. You've got to leave every morning at 7:21. So you say, look, you get ready by 7:14. We'll have 7 minutes. I will do whatever you want for 7 straight minutes. If you want me to watch a YouTube video that I hate more than anything else in the entire world, I will do it if you get ready at 7:14. So that's a drawing. Now here's, switch that up. Hey, Casey, we leave for school at 7:21. My time's important to me. Every minute that you are late, past 27 minutes, or past 7:21, you will forfeit 10 minutes of your screen time. And when the first time I did it with that, what did he say? Well, that's not fair. I was like, I don't play fair. I play to win. My time is a lot more important than yours. You take 1 of my minutes, I take 10 of yours. So the first time we did that, he got in the car, I held up the phone. He was 3 minutes late. So here's what he said. Dad, that's actually pretty good for me. I was like, it was better, but you still chose to forfeit 30 minutes of your free time tonight. So what did he say? He said, Father, thank you for being consistent and following through. It makes me feel safe as a child. He didn't say that. He called me names. I don't know why anybody would buy your parenting CDs. You're not even a good parent yourself. Oh, you're stupid. I hate you. Of course he said those things. Why? He wasn't mad at me. He was mad at himself. So I pick him up that day. We come home. He's playing his video games. I walk in. Hey, just wanted to remind you, this morning you chose to lose 30 minutes. Same thing. This is stupid. I didn't think you'd actually follow through. Just be the grown-up. Be the leader. Just do what you told him you were going to do. I didn't have to get on. You know what? If you would have been in the car on time, none of this snotty stuff. Just let you know. When I tell you something, I just do what I told you I was going to do. I'm not mad at you. Not upset at you. I'm just doing what I told you I was going to do. So tomorrow morning, 7:21. And they started to get the thing. Without there being not a lot of drama. When you discipline. Short, sweet, 7:21. We got it? 7:21. You need some tools to get up early? I'll give you some tools. So here's a tool to get your child out of bed. I love this one. And you'll resist it, but it will work. Remember we talked about having an obstacle course in the basement, the backyard, things your kids have to climb under, climb through, crawl up, pull on, push on. It's really good for them. Tomorrow morning, wake your child up and say, hey, guess where I hid your breakfast? Outside the obstacle course. Bet you can't find it in 7.5 minutes. How many of your kids would love to eat their breakfast outside and go forage for it? Absolutely. Guess what we're doing tomorrow morning, my friend? What do you usually eat for breakfast? Bagels? Of course you eat bagels. Bread, it's good on the stomach. It's what all of our kids eat. Good. Bagels are okay right now. Later on, I want you to graduate some eggs, some protein, some good stuff like that. But right now, that doesn't sound good to you because your stomach's probably like, oh, whatever. Many of your kids are going to eat. How many of your kids eat bagels, simple carbs, because it's easy on their stomach, right? That's partly what it is. Sometimes anxiety and sometimes it's just easy. It tastes good. So that's an easy one. I can whip that bagel from the kitchen right out the window or door out in the backyard. If you guys don't do it, you're horrible parents. So I want you to do that in the morning. And then what do you eat on the bagel? Do you butter or you do cream cheese? You don't know. Cream cheese. Okay. So I'd mix it up. I'd put the bagel one place and make them look for the cream cheese. Look, I'm being serious with that. How many of your kids would love that? Then do it. Who cares if it's weird? And here's why it's good. One, you already saw, there's one kid in here who's like, I'm up, I'll do it. You wake them up with a challenge. Hide their clothes outside. I don't care. Just get them outside. They're happy outside. He'll be outside eating his bagel, happy as a clam. You know why? Because there's no irritating parents talking to him. And then if you have other siblings, you and your good siblings are going to be inside. It's quiet. I'm not being funny with that. Why don't we do those things? Dinner time. Just throw the mac and cheese in the backyard. They will go out and eat it. I'm not kidding with that. Do those weird things. I had just recorded a podcast in our hotel room 2 days ago. It'll be out sometime in November. I'm not sure when. Do what works, even if it's weird. Our kids like odd things. That'll get them out of bed. And now he does that Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday, he gets to hide something, and mom or dad have to go find it. Now we're bonding. It's fun. Stop making childhood miserable. Look, the kid's got energy. We've got to use it. So here's my favorite ownership one. So, son, here's the deal. Every morning I have one goal for you. I want you in a carpool on the school bus at 7:21 a.m. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you smell like. I don't care what's in your stomach. Be on that school bus, 7:21. If you're smart enough to wear the clothes to bed that you're going to wear to school the next day, brilliant. You can sleep until 7:19, roll out of bed, grab that Pop-Tart that you hid underneath your bed because I know you hoard food up there. You can run out to the school bus. You don't even have to have your shoes on because we live in Indiana, not Canada. You're not going to die. You can put your shoes on the bus. In fact, if you're smart enough, you could leave your shoes on the bus the previous day when you get off. Hide some stuff under there. Keep your clothes up somewhere that they didn't find. How many of you have kids? They're problem solvers. I've never done that one where you leave the shoes on the bus, but why not? That's smart. So at the end of the day, when he comes home and he made the school bus at 7:21, your appropriate response, nice job, my friend. Well done. Now, what am I thinking inside? I hate the way he gets ready. I want him up early. I want him to get some exercise, and I want him to eat blueberries and avocado and good healthy fat so his brain's ready to learn. And I want him to look nice and smell nice. I don't care. You know when he's going to eat healthy? When you finally stop lecturing him. Because how many kids have ever said, Mom, you know what, I didn't realize that what I was putting in my body was so unhealthy. But after you lectured me 15 times and showed me the food pyramid, which is all wrong anyway, I'm motivated to eat healthy. I'm not talking about letting your kids die and eat unhealthy stuff. But the more that you try to how many of you found the more I try to force things on you, the more they just resist? Even at 4, do you see that? Yes. So I model it for it. You too get up in the morning. Eat a healthy breakfast. Now, 4 is a little young for doing this thing, but you can do versions of it. And over time, see, when he's at school, older kid, and his stomach is a little upset in 3rd period, what's he going to learn? It affects my stomach. He'll eventually come downstairs and start eating something more healthy because he determined that it affects his stomach. Again, use it with wisdom, but I like giving kids our phrases when we step back as parents. It gives our kids space to step up and be responsible for themselves. So you can use a mix of sweet stuff. I can do the 7:21. Take a minute of my time. You lose it, my friend. One more example, and we'll take a quick break. If you need to take a break, just do it. You're adults. You can move. Anxiety issues. How many of your kids struggle with anxiety a little bit? Okay. Let me hit this from 2 different ways. The first one is going to be kind of a broad way, and then I'm going to do a very specific example. I would encourage you to normalize some of these things that our kids are going through. Normalize anxiety. In our society now, we are making everything out as if it's a disorder and you need to go talk to someone. Sometimes kids need to go to therapy. Most of the time, it doesn't work that well, and it's a waste of money. My wife's a therapist, so we believe in it. But saying to a kid, oh, you struggle with anxiety, why don't you go every week and you talk to someone about your anxiety? You will create so much anxiety. What I'd rather you do sometimes say, of course you're anxious. It's normal to have some level of anxiety over things. It's a normal thing. We're making as if, oh my gosh, she has anxiety. Of course you have anxiety. You're going to a new place where you don't know anyone? How many of the men in here, if you have to go to like a party at a friend's house, I don't want to go to those. Like, why would I want to go hang out with other people, right? I'd rather go out. We go to like a local sports bar and watch something on a screen and have some wings and something, and at night I'll be like, I had a great time with that guy. Well, what'd you guys talk about? Nothing. We just watched the football game together. I don't want to go to a dinner party at your house. Now I'm all awkward and having to make small talk, and I'm not good at it. So the first thing I'm going to do is, hey, you know anybody run the grill? Because I really like making the burgers. Because that way I can talk to everybody. What kind of cheese do you want? And at the end of the night, I'm like, I had a great time. He likes Swiss. He likes provolone. He doesn't like cheese. And I'm like, I had a great night. Your wife says, you didn't even talk to anybody? Why would I want to talk to anybody? It's awkward. So normalize the anxiety. So it sounds like this. Oh, son, of course you're nervous. Going to new places, you should be a little bit nervous. But I believe you're capable of going and having a really good time. Here's another normalizing. Of course that assignment is difficult. See, we say things all the time. Oh, that's not hard. You just need to focus. Well, if that assignment isn't hard, but it's hard for me, then I must be stupid. If I shouldn't be nervous, but I am nervous, maybe there's something wrong with me. And I'd rather us be the leaders and say, of course you don't want to do that schoolwork. Why would you want to do the schoolwork? You'd rather play. It's normal. Now, I'm not saying, so go ahead and just play. Of course you don't want to do it. It's difficult. But I believe with the right tools, you can get that assignment done and do a really good job on that. Does that make sense? The of course, but I believe you're capable is a really nice thing because I'm acknowledging that's normal, but I'm not leaving you there. Of course you're anxious, so let's just not go. Let's never do anything again in life. So I'm not going to do the full anxiety example. Just know that it happens a lot with new experiences. A lot of your kids don't want to go to new places because what triggers in their brain are all the unknowns, right? Of like, there's a new guy, he's going to be an instructor. What if he's not nice? And what if I'm not good? And the other kids might pick on me. And so they may end up saying, no, I'm not going. Taekwondo's stupid. You're stupid. I hate you. And the reason they say all those things is because they want to get sent to their room so they don't have to go to the new place. But if in the moment I looked at him and said, of course you're anxious. You're going to a new place, you should be. But here's what we're going to do to get there. So I'll give you this tool for anxiety. Wherever your kids go, whether it's like a Taekwondo class to school, maybe it's, for Casey, it was even Sunday school at church. He never wanted to go. Wherever you go, ask another adult to give your child a job to do. So you deal with kids all the time, right, in the children's ministry, and you're going to get the ones who walk in and they're really anxious. But if you were to say, oh man, I need you here every Sunday morning because you're really strong, could you help me move these chairs and get set up? When that child wakes up on Sunday morning, instead of like, I don't want to go to the church, I don't want to go, he's like, oh, Mr. I just lost your name. What? Sorry, it's so close to mine. Mr. Kevin needs my help. See, they'll go for Mr. Kevin because Mr. Kevin needs their help doing something, and they know Mr. Kevin's going to be, hey, good job, man, you're really strong. But if it's just mommy and daddy saying, come on, you need to go. You're going to have I know you're going to have a good time. Like, no, I'm not. You're just saying that, Mom. So have another adult at school, wherever they're going, give them a specific job to do. Does that make sense? It's 7:17. I'd rather give you 5 or 6 minutes to at least stand up. Afterwards, we will do, by the way, I do want to say, what is your son's name? Max? Max, awesome job. He sat through an hour, 17 minutes of a parenting workshop, has not caused any problems at all, perfectly content drawing and doing things. It's awesome. It's awesome. I wouldn't sit here. Hey, Max, we're going to a parenting workshop. Ready to go? Did he have a meltdown before he went? He shouldn't be, right? Normalize it. Of course you don't want to go to a parenting workshop. Who would? I'm not picking on, I want to use this as, see, we miss all those things. We'll pick out the things that Max doesn't do well, but look at all the things. There was no big meltdown before this. He didn't want to go. He probably complained a little bit, as he should. You complain about things you don't want to do all the time. I guarantee you guys complain about political things or religious things or something. Probably both, yes. And that's normal. So Max complained a little bit, but he's here. He's not running around. He's not disturbing anybody. He's doing a great job. Some of you are more fidgety than he is. And you're grown-ups. But I'm not yelling at you yet. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to do some tough discipline things. We'll do defiance and disrespect. We'll do some internal motivation things, and we can do some sibling things. But I'd rather you take a break. If you are interested at all, we have a newsletter sign up. We have a podcast you can find. It's called Calm Parenting Podcast on lots of different topics. If you're interested at all, I'm not going through all the stuff in here. We have an entire curriculum of audio CDs. They're physical here, but they're all downloads. They come right to your phone, your iPad. Share them with your spouse. You can put them on your husband's phone because hubbies don't always want to listen to this stuff. But during their commuter while they're working out, just steal his phone and download our stuff to it. There's a little men's CD on there that guys like. But if you're interested in sibling fight screens, it's all in the handout. There's a marriage one on there. And what we decided to do, it's our last night of the trip, is our materials, if you go online, never buy them directly online because they're too expensive. These are usually $99 each. They only cost me $1.22 to produce, a little bit more with inflation, but it cost me. I make them expensive for two reasons. One is self-respect. We put a lot of time into this. This will change your family, and I want people to respect it. And the other thing is ownership. I want people to invest in something because when you invest in it, you work at it. But instead of $99 for one, Casey brought a sheet up tonight, and it just said, get everything. It's like 12 or 13 programs, 35 hours worth of stuff. We're just going to do it for $99, which we don't usually do. We were in New Jersey, and we did it for $4.95. Why? Because they're from New Jersey. So we it's my company. I get to do whatever I want. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it tonight, but if you want it like down the road, just say, hey, we met you in Upland. We want your materials. What I found is when people get the materials and you listen again and again, it just gets in there and reinforces. So let's do this. Let's take about a 5.5, 6 minute break. That'll give us tons of time when we get back to do the hard discipline, all that stuff. If you want to talk to me, Pastor's going to turn the sound off, come up, but otherwise get a drink, run around, do whatever you want. Okay, that was loud. Sorry about that. So let's do a quick thing on tools. You know, there's something interesting, at least to me, during the break. Max, you don't mind if I brag about you, do you? So I look over, and Max is crawling on his knees across all of the chairs. And so sometimes you'd be like, Max, don't do that. But you know what he wasn't doing? He wasn't walking on them on his feet. See, we miss those things of like, he knew that I would have tackled him and thrown him down if he had walked across chairs with his shoes on. But he didn't. He used his knees to go across. See, you can look at it one of two ways. Well, that kid's moving all the time. He's supposed to be moving. It's perfectly normal, but he made a good choice because he didn't put his feet all over the nice church chairs. He used his knees. It's a perfectly smart thing to do. So, anyway, let's do a couple things on quick tools. So instead of reacting to kids and consequences all the time, we like giving kids tools to succeed. So if I know that, if I were teaching Max, I would know pretty quickly what I like about Max is he's got energy. And that's what's going to make him really successful in life. So am I going to expect him to sit still all class period long? No. So partway through class, Max and I are going to have a little signal. So when I give him a little special signal, right, like the Houston Astros, like special signal that they cheat and everything with, then he's going to come up and grab a water bottle and take it to the back of the room and refill it for me. I'm going to give him jobs to do during class. And the idea is I'm creating successes, because if I don't let him move appropriately within my boundaries, he's just going to be in trouble all the time. Some of you have seen before the sensory strip thing we use that can help at times with focus issues. So just saying, you need to focus better doesn't work. This is a sensory strip, double-sided tape. On this side are some little textury strips. And so science has proven when kids play with textured objects, it often improves concentration. So if this is a child's desk at school, I can tape this right underneath the desk. Child can play with this and fidget with this all class period long. Doesn't make any noise. You can't whack a classmate in the face with it. It doesn't change the entire day, but a few times when I was zoning out or I wanted to play with my classmate's face and hair, I had something appropriate to play with. It's an appropriate fidget, and fidgeting is really good for kids. Most of you in here, many of you in here fidget, like you're bouncing your legs, because that keeps you awake. If I were here, I would be bouncing my legs, chewing on something, and taking notes. Because that's what, like when I'm at church taking pastor's notes, I'm usually not taking notes on the sermon. Sometimes I divide my paper into notes on the sermon, and I'm usually working on a podcast or work. And my pastor's always like, man, you take a lot of notes. And I was like, not on your sermon. I was doing my work. I was just hoping you wouldn't do that long prayer at the end. We already heard the sermon. We don't have to have a prayer repeating your sermon. We got the point. God heard you too. So, how many of you feel like, good, I just said what you always feel. Pastor, we got the message. God, just let us remember points number 1, 2, and 3. Nope, we got it. We're out. God, we're hungry. Chick-fil-A's closed on Sunday, so we can't go there. So, I'm glad you laughed at that and didn't think it was too irreverent. So, I encourage you, let the conversation with teachers, especially ones that actually will work with you, and teachers do have a hard job because we have like 1 or 2 strong-willed kids, and they may have like 25 in a classroom. Let the conversation with teachers and parents, your spouse, be, instead of always, what are we going to take away? Hey, what are 2 or 3 tools we could give our child to succeed? I like tools to succeed, like creating that. Let's do a couple things on disrespect and tough discipline. I'm trying to think of the tough discipline. Did I do the rake leaves example last time? Does anybody remember that one? I don't even know if any of you were here. I'm trying not to repeat too much. Let's do this is a good one, because I try to read body posture, and I always think guys are like, I don't want to do all this soft stuff, understanding my kid. When do I get to lay down the law and tell them what to do? I like doing that, as long as it's firm, even, matter of fact. So, Casey's about 11. It's Friday night. I say, Casey, you need to go rake the leaves. He's like, I don't have to. because he went through little periods where he got a little full of himself. So on that night, I said, you know what? I'm cool with that. New rule in our home, we don't have to do things for each other. Cool with that. So I walked away, and he was really happy because he didn't have to rake the leaves. So Saturday morning comes, and I knew it was going to happen because he had a hockey game that morning. So I got up really early. I went, I exercised. I got ready for it. He came downstairs. I was reading the newspaper like word cleaver. Casey comes downstairs. Dad, I've got a hockey game. You've got to take me to the rink. So I said, I don't have to. And he said, seriously, Dad? Seriously? Those are just stupid leaves. I've got a game. I said, no, last night we established that we don't have to do things for each other. So I don't have to take you to the rink because it's really cold at the rink and you're not even really good at playing. I didn't say that. I just thought that. But it was true. He wasn't a good player. So I said, not happening. So he was like, seriously? And then he went to this one. You know, what if I go outside and I do it right now? Not the way it works. Not the way it works. Well, that's stupid. Why do you use the word stupid? Because like you, how many of you have those rules in your home like you can't use the word stupid? That'll guarantee that your strong-willed child uses it over and over again because they know that. A mom the other night had a rule with her child, things he couldn't say. I was like, that's such a dumb rule. Like, I would say that every time to you just to get a rise out of you. Just be careful. Are you a little bit like that yourself? Yes. Oh, he thinks he's right about everything. He is in training to be a husband. So, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. Guys, stop proving your point all the time. It took me a year to get over that with my wife. I had to say every day, I do not have to prove my point. It just makes us a jerk. Same in politics, right? Like nobody's ever like, man, you know what? Your opinion on that matter is so good. You know, I changed my deeply held beliefs that I've had since I was a kid based on you believing. No. They just walk away and they're like, yeah, you're a jerk. And that's why I don't belong to your political party. And you're like, you're a jerk too. So, let's do that. So, he starts yelling and screaming. I didn't react. And here's an important point for all of us, but for the guys I like to say. You're justified in being angry. You're justified in yelling at your kid. You're justified. Kid comes down, he's like, this is stupid. You're justified. There'd be nothing wrong with you saying, you know what? If you just would have raked the leaves when I told you to, we wouldn't have to go through this. It's your own fault. There wouldn't be anything wrong with that. That's perfectly true. But it doesn't work, and it just escalates things needlessly. Because the reason that my son was mad at me, he wasn't mad at me, he was mad at himself. So he starts walking through the house, stomping through the house. He wants the reaction. He wants the intensity. So he goes upstairs, comes back down, sees my wife. So now I hear them in the kitchen, and this infuriates men. Mom, will you just talk to him? You know how he is. That made me furious. What do you mean how I am? So I didn't say anything. I just poked my head in the kitchen and said, honey, if I were you, I'd find some kind of errand to run because it's about to get ugly in here, but I can handle it. So she wisely went and did something. So he's going through his whole thing, up and down the stairs, screaming, yelling, and I'm not biting on it. Eventually he comes downstairs and says, fine, I'll rake your stupid leaves. And again, one more time for me to get out of the chair and say, you don't talk to your father like that. Could have said it. Nothing wrong with that. But I didn't. So he goes outside. So I'm watching outside. He'd gone and got the rake. He's raking the leaves. But you know what else he's raking? He's actually raking my entire lawn up. He's doing it so hard, he's pulling my grass up. Now I'm even more furious. And in my head, I want to murder the kid. I had murder in my heart for my child. How many of you occasionally get that? Okay, the rest of you are lying, especially you. I know you have. I'm just kidding. So I finally go outside, get a rake, and now I'm out there with him, and we're raking. I decided to humble myself. I believe that humility with a strong-willed child is essential, because you're going to be justified. You've got a 4-year-old, especially your little 4-year-old. You are going to be justified literally hundreds of times before he's 18 in reading him the riot act and telling him about his attitude and what he is and is not going to do. And all it will do is he's going to dig in his little 4-year-old self and take you on and pull on your beard and whatever else he wants to do. And it will ruin your relationship. And here's what happens with men often, with dads. We justify it. Well, you know what? He's not respectful toward me. You know what? Until your son starts to learn how to speak to his dad appropriately, then I'm not doing it. And that's often, I use that as an excuse because I didn't know how to have relationships. I didn't teach me that. I didn't know how to do that. So I use that as justification to work harder and to disappear to the basement and hang outside and do chores all the time. So I didn't have to have a relationship because it was just too hard. But what will happen with that is by the teen years, that child will shut down on you and become openly hostile because he knows that you don't like him. And I'm asking you to do it a little differently. I can't tell you how many phone calls. I do phone consultations yesterday with a family. They've got a 17-year-old son. And I have to ask the dad, I was like, do you have any kind of bond with your son? No, I've never liked him. I was like, it's 17 years of this kid knowing you don't like him, and you want to fix things and get him motivated, like in a couple weeks. Like, don't use that to justify. I agree with you. They're difficult and challenging, and sometimes they're disrespectful, absolutely. But they're still your kid. And if you can, look, my challenge to you is bond over the thing that you find most irritating. Find something, like that morning routine. Oh, I hate morning routine. Morning routine is awful. My challenge to you is become creative and find a way to bond with your child during that time. Because you can. You just have to be creative with it and put down some of your stuff and say, here's the example. So this kid is 17. He just got kicked off the soccer team because he was impulsive and did something wrong. Soccer was the only thing he's really good at. So now he's lifting weights. But this dad's a good dad. This is not a bad dad. He's a normal dad. He's like, I need to ask you a question. My son, 17, he goes out at like 9:30, 10 o'clock to lift weights. What do you think about that? I was like, perfectly normal to me for the kids I work with. Now, would I rather him go work out at 5:30 or 4 o'clock and then come home and do his homework while his brain's fresh and he's got endorphin rush? Absolutely. But most of our kids. So you know what this kid does? This is interesting. He goes out. He knows it's late. He comes into their room like at 11:30 when they're like falling asleep, turns on the lights, takes off his shirt, and flexes for them. Now look, a normal dad has every right to say, listen, you little selfish jerk. It's 11:30. I'm tired. You turned on the lights. I don't want to see you flex. You should be working. Perfectly normal to say that. But what I asked of this dad was to think about it. This is a kid, and look, his brother's name, you'll never know him, but his brother's name is Brody. Brody's 13, and Brody's the golden child. Brody's awesome. And the dad and Brody do all kinds of stuff together. So it's like, you know what your kid's doing, don't you? This older one. He's not great at school. He doesn't get to play soccer anymore. He's got one thing in his life now that he's good at. He comes in at 11:30 and flexes because he's screaming to you, please notice something good about me. And I was like, realize, you look at him one way, annoying, disrespectful, selfish kid coming in late at night, but you could also see, here's a kid so hungry for affirmation and so awkward that he comes in at almost midnight walking around flexing because he wants his dad to say, man, you're really working out hard. He's getting some definition there. And so what I asked the dad to do, I said, your son can tell when you walk into that room, when he walks into the room, he sees how you shift in your bed, irritated at him, which you're justified in doing. But next time he comes in, what can you do so you bond with him over it? Could you ask him, like, hey, if I went to the gym, could you help me work on a couple things? Because one of the best ways to bond with kids, especially teenagers, is to let them teach you something. Because their whole lives, we're teaching them. Teach, do this, do this. It'd be much better if you do this, do this, do this. But if you allow your child to teach you something, it'll be something you probably don't want to learn, right? And be interested in what they're interested in. It's not going to be what you want to do. Dads, you don't get to say, I'm into fishing, let's go fishing if they don't like to go fishing. Do what they're interested in. Have that bond. Because I guarantee if this dad starts making a big deal out of that and doing that with his son, now the trust will start coming in. Does that make sense at all? I'm not saying it's not justified. I just want it is the relationship. There's no consequence you can give this 17-year-old kid that's going to matter. So the story ends, we're out there, and this humility part is a very powerful thing for the strong-willed child. Humility breaks down walls. Your 4-year-old, you've already found out. When you stand like this, he's like, I'm manning up. He's 4. He's like, bring it. Just like that. He comes right back at you. I'm not saying that you should get, you know what, 4-year-old, just do whatever you want. I don't want that, but I don't want this. I want to transition to some ownership. I want to give him some choices like, hey, what's his name if you don't mind? What is it? Brennan. Cool name. Brennan. And often even Brennan, here are a couple options. You know what one you can do with him? Brennan, don't tell mom. But here's what we're going to. And as soon as you say that, he's like, I'm on it. Right? Or don't tell dad before dad gets home. Give him some options. Make it, and then notice and say, it's a good job, my friend. Lots of fist bumps with him. Lots of them. By the way, when you praise strong-willed kids, don't make it a big deal. Oh, Brennan, you did such a good job. It sounds fake. We never thought you'd actually make a good choice, and you just did, so we're going to make a big deal out of it. Sowing seeds. Hey, Brennan, good choice. It was a good choice. And then walk away. Don't stand there awkwardly. You just made a good choice. I'm proud of you. And he's going to be like, you're a good dad too. It's awkward. It's weird. Sow seeds in your kids. Hey, Max. Look, he looked up. I was just doing an example. But I'd be like, tonight and next few days, I want you guys to recall all the things. Sometimes think about what your child didn't do. Tonight, Max didn't run around the whole thing. He didn't run on the chairs. He sat and he's been drawing all night, 2 hours. Like if I were him, I would take him out for something special tonight. Ice cream? Are you guys going? We'll go. Where are you going? Ivanhoe's. We were right there at that pizza place. We didn't eat there, but I told Casey, I was like, they have ice cream. I love ice cream. Max, guess what? Your parents are buying you and I ice cream tonight. I'm psyched. Anyway, banana split. Get the most expensive thing. You deserve it tonight. Yeah, get something really good. Get something with lots of sugar so you don't fall asleep well. That's what I would do. You're welcome. I'm kidding. Look, now he's all happy. So I would, if we were staying in town, I would do that, and I would buy you ice cream. But we have to drive to Cincinnati tonight. So we don't. Casey does. I'm taking a nap. So I'm going to leave it at, so here's the end of the story. So I humble myself, and I say, Casey, remember when you were a little kid, we used to put the pile of leaves in there when we'd jump in it together? And you know what he did? He turned his back on me. Now that's infuriating. You do not turn your back to your father. And I wanted to crack him over the head with a rake. I could have murdered him right there and hit him in the leaves, put him in a little wood chipper. Nobody would have found him. So I go and I jump in the leaves. Nice job, Pastor. So I'm just kidding. Look, there's another one. If it was our kids who did that, if your kids were sitting next to you and their phone or something went up, turn that off. How many times have I told you to do that? Is that not true? But when it's us, it's like, oh, sorry, I made a mistake, right? So I go and I jump in a pile of leaves and I sit there for a few minutes like an idiot, right? Like looking up at God like, nice, calm thing. This really works. And then I watch, and Casey puts his rake down. And this is important to me. When he put his rake down, I knew he was coming to jump in the pile. He was laying his pride down. That took a lot of courage to lay that rake down, because what he was doing was humbling himself, right? Humility breaks down walls. Humility leads to contrition. Then he jumped in the pile. Now, did he apologize right away? No, because he's irritating. So we had to sit there, and then finally he said, Dad, I should have raked the leaves last night. And as all good dads, I said, darn right you should have. No, I didn't say that. Inside. Say all those things inside, dads and moms, but don't say it outside. So at the end of the story, we're together. For the rest of his childhood, we had some code words. We had 721, and we had, it's going to be one of those rake leaves things. Got it, Dad. I like those moments because they bond you together. Quick thing on motivating kids. So this is skews slightly older, but I want you to begin this when your kids are younger. So here's the hard part. Many of the kids, some of you have kids. Do any of you have kids who are really good in school? Like they like school, they're good at it. Okay, so when they're in school all day, they're doing well. They like school. They're good at sitting, memorizing information, taking tests. Awesome. And everybody says, oh, you're such an awesome student. You're going to take honors classes and take an SAT and go to college and have a good life. They're confident and feel good about themselves. Then you have many of our kids, and part of the hard part for them is they have gifts and talents, things they're good at, that don't get measured in school. Some of you have kids who can come home and build a robot, but they don't get a grade for that. Some of your kids are fantastic, very creative. How many of you have kids who are really, really good at drawing, and yet they'll get a C in art class? Why? Because they didn't follow directions, because the teacher wanted them to draw something from this perspective, but they thought that was boring. So they drew what they wanted to draw. And so they get a C, and as a parent, you're like, please, it's like one thing you're good at. Just do what the teacher wants you to do. Get the A. But they don't want to do it that way. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's how they're wired. They don't value it. I value my artistic freedom and doing it the way I want over your grade. I don't care if I get a bad grade, because I just drew something that I really like and I'm proud of. That's hard for some of you. That's the way I tend to think of things. My wife is a people pleaser, compliant person, and she's awesome. But she would never push the limits on anything. So she and we had to wrestle with Casey, and I'd have to say, he's okay. He's just going to push the limits. And while that's going to hurt him as a child sometimes in his grades, later in life, it's going to pay off, because he's going to be able to risk things and do things that other people don't want him to do sometimes. I talked about, I'll come back to this really quickly, grading on a curve, knowing your child. A couple quick things. Many of your kids are not great as kids, but they're really good in the adult world. Give them adult chores to do. Remember we talked about creating that big box for kids. We come up with chores, and we come up with a very narrow list. Take the dog out, take the trash out, unload the dishwasher, make your bed. Some of you have kids, and I would bet $1,000 they're never going to do all 3 chores. They're just not, no matter what you take away. So what if you made the box a little bit bigger, and you said, well, my son does like shoveling mulch and digging holes and doing work outside. What if that became one of his chores? Some of you have kids who would love to go down to the elderly couple's house and do things for them, stuff that they won't do for you. So could you include that as one of their chores? Because the idea of chores is I just want you to be responsible and respectful. It doesn't have to be toward me, right? Right? Your little guy, he may end up being like, hey, I'm going down, I'm going to help them out. You're like, but you don't do anything here. You're like, I know. And you're going to have to wrestle with that as a couple. You two are going to have to wrestle and say, is that okay with us? Where we came out was, that was okay with us. Casey was virtually useless in our home. He didn't do a lot. And you're going to wrestle and think, but aren't we training him to not? No, because he worked outside the home till he was 12, since he was 12. He has had a job, a hard job, real job, showing up early since he was 12, and he was responsible toward other people. That's what we were raising him to be. I don't want him coming home when he's 28 and doing chores around our house. I want him to be responsible on his own, and he is. And when I was visiting out there, every person I met, especially older people, oh, we love having Casey out here. Your son's very respectful. Your son offers to help us. My son. That's what we raised him to be. And so I encourage you with that as someone who's on the other side of this. Wrestle in those gray areas. Give them adult chores to do. And the other kids are going to be like, how come he doesn't have to do the chores? Well, he is doing some. He's just not doing these little ones that you do. He's changing the oil in the car, because I have kids who do that kind of stuff. He's doing other things, and that counts. Well, that's not fair. Well, you don't get to determine what's fair. And it sounds like you just are ungrateful, little snot. So, I don't like your heart. Your brother at least is defiant, and I know it. You're just secretly resentful, like the older child in the older brother in the prodigal son story. So I'd rather have the openly defiant. I'd rather have the prodigal child, because at the end of the day, his heart was good. It was the good child. If you look through Scripture, for all the people of faith in here, if you look through Scripture, it was all the good people that Jesus kind of yelled at. The Pharisees, the older son in the prodigal son story. All the main people in the Bible were awful. Moses was a murderer. King David was a murderer and adulterer. He had two big ones. Most of us just have one or two of those in our hearts sometimes, but he did it for real. And then Jacob, a man, he was one of the fathers of our faith, and yet he deceived his brother and deceived his father, and yet God honored him. Ever wonder why that is? Maybe there was something in his spirit in that take charge, get things done that he liked. Whereas Esau, he was like, you just gave up like your birthright for some food. Like, I can't trust you. You're too easy. Right? Does that make sense? Wrestle with this stuff, right? It doesn't mean you want to just be awful, but anyway. So here's what I encourage you to do. Number one, make a list of your child's natural gifts, talents, and passions. We tend to spend our child's entire childhood trying to fix everything that we think is wrong with them, and it ruins their confidence. Look, when you grow up and you go get a job, you don't apply for jobs at places that don't take advantage of your skills. Like if you're an accountant and a finance guy, you don't go to like the ad agency and say like, you know, I really want to try I want to see if I can be really creative. No. If you're really creative, you don't want to go sit in an office and just do spreadsheets all day. If I took you as say you're a creative guy, and then tomorrow you're working in finance and accounting, I come back 3 days later, I'd be like, how's it going? You'd be like, I'm not good. Well, you just need to apply yourself. And after a while, you'd feel like a failure because that's not the way you're wired. So make a list of their gifts, talents, and passions. What are they good at doing? What do they enjoy doing? Think of it this way. When your kids are happy and content, not video games, but when they're happy and content, what are they doing? Are they doing things with their hands? Do they tinker with things? Are they drawing? What is it? Ask this question. Who do your kids connect well with? Some of your kids are really good with younger kids. There's a boy yesterday was into soccer and is really good with younger kids. So you know what we're going to do with him? We're going to try to find a soccer coach who will who will use him to help other little kids, because that makes him feel good about himself. Wherever he goes, little kids gravitate toward him. So who are they good? Some of your kids, it's animals. So get them a job, get them a little volunteer job down at the animal shelter, walking dogs in the neighborhood, whatever it is. Secondly, find ways for your kids to use their natural gifts, talents, and passions outside the home as much as possible. In school, in church, synagogue, wherever, in the neighborhood. Number 3, accountable to another adult. Other adults can do 2 things for your kids that you can't do. 1, they can see really good things in your kids. I see at least like 15 good things in Max. But I don't have to ask Max to go to bed tonight or to brush his teeth, and I don't have to wake him up tomorrow morning. Although if I did, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to see how far I can throw that bagel. In fact, if I came over tomorrow, I would have a contest and see who could throw the bagel the furthest. And that's what we're going to wake up, and we're going to see if we can hit. Now, when we were kids, we could hit other people's houses with stuff. You can't do that. But how many of you did that when you were kids? Anybody? You guys are lying. I had 3 brothers. We hit cars with snowballs, with crab apples. We shot bottle rockets at things. You can't do that. Don't get any ideas. Come on, some of you did stuff, did you not? You did stuff all the time. Just now you get a lawsuit and someone will kill you. So, but I would find all kinds of ways. See, there's all kinds of good things in Max. Like a ton of good things in Max. I would take him on the road with us, and then he wouldn't have to go to stupid math class. Anyway, I'd teach him math. You could add up money. I could teach you all kinds of different ways to do that. So anyway, let's find ways for them to use. Other people can see good things in your kids, and they can hold them accountable. Quick story. So we're at a live workshop with a mom, and she came up during the break and said, we have 2 minutes left. I'll get the story done. So my 14-year-old daughter shut down. Bad attitude, doesn't do her schoolwork, just doesn't do hygiene, anything. What consequence can we give to turn her around? There are none. Because if there was a consequence, you would have found it by now. So I asked 2 questions. Those questions, what is she good at? Who does she connect well with? Soccer, really good with younger kids. Okay, Mom, here's your goal. Go in the neighborhood in this community. Find a soccer coach who's teaching like little kids, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and go to that coach and say, hey, I've got this daughter, loves kids, really good at soccer. You look like you're a little overwhelmed. Could you ask my daughter to come help? One of the keys is you've got to find other adults and have the other adult ask your child for help if they can't. If it's your idea, they're not going to do it. Honey, I think you'd be really good at this. Nope. Your idea, Mom, can't be good. How many of you found that to be true? Ask the other adult. So she does. This soccer coach talks to this girl and says, hey, I've heard, really good at soccer, really good with little kids. Could you come out on Tuesday night and help me out? She's like, okay, I guess so. So she does. At the end of the night, she comes home happy. You know why? Because at the end of practice, 9 little girls came up and hugged her. Her name's Rebecca. Because little kids love older girls. That night, here's what she felt. I have a gift inside of me. I have a gift with little kids. And I felt that gift. I had something to give someone else. For those of you who have kids who struggle with anxiety and sometimes even with depression, one of the best antidotes is seeing that I have something to give another human being. Taking them down to that animal shelter or an animal or that senior retirement home and singing or making treats for them. There's old people who love on your child. Use old people all the time. Old people love kids when they're not their own, right? And no, it's good. And send your child down to their home and say, would you tutor my son for a couple hours? They would love it. And they'll love on your child. And then you get a couple hours away from the challenging child. It's a good thing for everyone. So the coach says, could you come out Saturday morning because we have a game? So she comes out, she works it. Afterwards, 2 sets of parents come up to this girl with a bad attitude, bad hygiene, bad everything, and says, Rebecca, my daughter talks about you all the time, but she's struggling in school. Would you be willing to tutor her? Would you mentor her? Not knowing Rebecca has not done schoolwork for years. But now Rebecca has a reason to do schoolwork because the coach said, I want you here 2 days a week. But if you're mouthing off to your mother, not keeping a B average, and not doing your chores, you're not working with these little girls because I'm looking for a leader. And see, to that person, she says, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, because you have something I care about. I don't care about stupid school, but I do care about helping these kids. And now Rebecca has a reason to do school. Why? Because she's going to tutor little kids. I'll end with this, find what your kids care about. We care about good grades and good behavior. Discover what they care about, and then use that. Now, this was over a year ago, and I just emailed with the mom. Rebecca still doesn't like school because it's stupid and boring, but she's doing her schoolwork because now she's met other people who are like, you could be a teacher, you could be a child psychologist, you could be an occupational therapist. She's doing the schoolwork because she cares about it, not because her mommy and daddy want her to do it. So final words are, 1, thank you to all of you for coming out. Thank you to the church for, again, hosting us. Thank you for investing your time. If we can help you in any way, let us know. I'll stay for a few minutes afterwards, answer any questions. Our email address is on the bottom of your handout. if you get any of the the CD downloads things, I would listen to the ADHD University and the Strong-Willed Child one first, because they're very foundational. Let your kids listen to those. As you listen, if you have questions, email us. You email us, well, Casey answers. I'll start answering because I like Max. But email us. We'll work with you. We want to help you. Final word is enjoy. I want you to enjoy the strong-willed child. As difficult as they are, start enjoying this little 4-year-old full of, and that'll change their behavior. But anyway, thank you all very much. Have a good evening. Enjoy your ice cream, and I hope your kids do have a meltdown so you can practice this. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.